Hi, everyone. Welcome to tonight's call. My name's Nikki Leal. My co host here is Jason Brown.
Jason Brown, Coach Brown in the building.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Whether you're watching us live or you're catching the replay, we are grateful for your participation. So, we just want to talk a little bit tonight with you guys. We're going to take a minute to share this on our personal pages. If you're watching live with us, we'd love for you to share it as well. We're talking a little bit today about finding the eye of the storm. So, essentially, what that means is figuring out where we're going to focus our attention when chaos arises and maybe things aren't going your way or there's crazy things around you happening in the universe or out in politics land. So what we want to think about is really just facilitating some tools, techniques, strategies to make sure you're focusing your attention where it belongs. So I'm going to go on here right now and share this post. So if you guys want to do so as well, just give me 1 second here. All right, perfect. All right, so we're going to kick it off and get started. We're in. Excellent. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is spending your attention wisely. So the idea of attention is actually a law. So like there's laws like in the universe, like the law of gravity, the law of attraction. There is a thing called the law of attention. So essentially, a law of attention is a limited resource. So it's not like one of those things like air or something that like has endless possibilities. The law of attention is actually limited, just like something like money. So there is an end to money unless it just keeps circulating and growing. There is at some point going to be an end to it. So thinking about reinforcing what you're focusing your attention on and being mindful of that. So really paying attention to what you're paying attention to. So what you're thinking about, what kind of energy you're putting into what you're thinking about. Are you that kind of person that gets really bothered easily? Do you keep your calm well? Do you crumble under pressure? What do you focus your attention on the most? And that's really important to figure out in the future how to troubleshoot problems and also stop things from happening in their tracks. Once you become consciously aware of what you're putting your attention on, then you'll have the tools and the strategies to be able to maybe like prevent something from happening in the future if something came out and yielded a result that wasn't that desirable. Really focusing on becoming aware of what your mind is processing and thinking throughout the day. And the great thing about the law of attention is it can work in your favor. The bad thing about the law of attention is it can work against your favor. So, of course, if you're putting your attention on mostly positive things, your goals for the future, your aspirations, the people that you love, more positive things will come your way. If you're focusing your attention on negative things, you can't wait to get at work. You hate your housing situation. You can't stand your mother-in-law. All the negative things that may be festering in your world. Of course, you focus your attention on that, and more negative things are going to come your way. So what we want to point out today is really being consciously aware what we are focusing our attention on and understanding it's a limited resource. So it will run out if you're not putting it into the positive space. You could run out of positivity if you're focusing on as little negative things as possible. You're going to create more positivity in your life.
And I think another thing that is extremely important to focus on is number one, we gotta really realize just how important our attention is, and I think it's something that people don't take the time to actually analyze. But if you actually stop and look around, what you'll see is that everything outside of yourself is calling for your attention.
Right.
Everything. When whether it's the food industry, entertainment industry, your friends, your family, even maybe your what you would call your enemy, like everything outside of you wants your attention. And the reason being, well, let me not get into that because we're gonna touch on that a little bit later. Sorry, I almost jumped a couple frames ahead, but let me dial back. So what you gotta ask yourself is, what wants your attention, right? What is it that's consuming your attention? So when you stop and you look at, your day-to-day activities, start to examine where your attention is being called for and what type of things are calling for your attention, and then more importantly, why. Because everything that's calling for your attention is calling for your attention um, with an intention, right? There's something that they're gaining from you lending your attention there. So you have to ask yourself, what is it that they're gaining? Why do they want my attention? And then also look at what is that producing for you, right? How Nikki was talking about earlier, if you put your attention on positive things, you're going to create more positivity inside of your life. You're going to create more positive things. Um, the reason being is that when you lend that focus to positive things, you're going to start to create, or you're going to start to attract more positive things into your life. So when you allow things that aren't of a positive nature or aren't of a productive nature to call for your attention, what you can find is you can find yourself depleted. You can find your resources depleted. So it's very, very important that we take time to examine, what's calling for my attention. Why does that thing or that person or even that organization or whatever it may be want my attention, right? There's a reason why they want your attention and they're using your attention for a certain thing. You have to make sure that, well, I won't go too far ahead again because we're gonna dive into these things, but just very very important. Be mindful uh of what is calling for your attention. And then also once you figure out what's calling for your attention, take time to examine why. Because once you understand why certain things are calling for your attention, then you can decide where you want to lay your attention and where you can lay your attention where it will be most conducive or more productive when it comes to creating something that actually works for you and not things outside of yourself, if that makes sense.
Sure. So now that we understand what attention is exactly, how can we program our minds to use attention to our best benefit? So, of course, we talked about earlier, negative attention is going to create more negative results. And what are these negative results eventually going to lead up to? Things like depression, anxiety, um, mental health issues, physical illnesses, accidents, things that we don't plan for, but will happen to us in a negative way because our energy is creating more negative energy. And of course, negative plus negative is going to equal more negative. So, what can we do to focus our attention on the things that we want to focus our attention to, the things that we want to create? The first thing we can do is really be consciously aware of what we're saying. So watch your language. If something comes out the wrong way, you can correct yourself. Even something like the way you talk to your children, the way you talk to your spouse, the way that you interact with people at work, the way that you appear in the world should be the way that you want people to treat you. So like you shouldn't treat the clerk at the grocery store any different than you treat your spouse or any different than you treat your best friend. Really putting your attention on being mindful of what you're putting out into the universe, really watching yourself. And then the good thing is, like, if you find yourself in a negative space, let's say for example, you're having a bad day, or your things don't feel like they're going the right way, or maybe you didn't land the job that you wanted to. As soon as you find yourself in a negative space, you have to pull yourself out of it as quickly as possible. And there might be something like a default trigger that you could use, something really simple, like say you're having a bad day. You might want to have a picture handy, like the background on your phone, for example, or you may have this set of positive affirmations that you say to help switch your mood around. Or you might take 3 minutes. You catch yourself having a lot of negative thoughts or just being in a grumpy mood. Sit for 5 minutes with yourself and fester up positive emotions. You can focus on maybe something that makes you really, really happy. Maybe it was your last vacation that you just loved and you enjoyed, and you really spent the time, with people that you loved, doing things that you enjoyed. Maybe you can think about if your favorite season's summer, you can just sit for 5 minutes, really reliving being on the beach, smelling the water, the seawater and the air and the sand between your toes and feeling the sun beaming on you. So it doesn't have to be anything too crazy, but like really, as soon as you catch yourself, have this default. It's almost like a reset button. Have this default ready and available for you. Maybe it's something simple like, snuggling with your dog for 3 minutes. It could be that little, something that will really shift your mindset and really feel it. So the thing is, we talk about the law of attraction a lot. Before the law of attraction is energy, the energy that you're exuberating out into the universe will come right back to you. So as soon as you feel that negative energy spewing out, you have to flip it around and be really consciously aware and shift it into the positive. Use those little default buttons, something super simple, easily attainable. Some people even hold, let's say, like a gratuity rock or something in their pocket. And every time they touch that rock in their pocket, they stop whatever they're doing and take a quick second and think about something they're grateful for. So that kind of gives you the opportunity to always be in a space of positivity throughout the day. Really reminding yourself of things that you're grateful for and feeling it, like feeling that energy in your body, allowing yourself to really get a deep connection with that. Another thing we could do is like fill the empty space that you have. Say your things aren't going quite the way that you want to, and you have like this 1 hour window between dinner time, and maybe you just like find something fun to do. It doesn't have to be, again, anything too dramatic. You don't have to like go stop everything you're doing and like run to the spa. It could be something simple. Maybe it's like playing your favorite game at home. I actually, for Christmas, one of my best friends gave me some word searches, and like I actually was talking to her about this a few weeks ago prior to her giving them to me, like how I used to do that when I was a kid, and it was just like a fun passing of time. And now me and my daughter do them together, and it's like this little tiny thing that like brings so much joy, because it's just like being free and like doing something simple without there like being a timer on it, or without like any real obligation, just like kind of stopping life, filling that space in with something that you enjoy. So it could be so simple as taking a walk, doing a word search, something like that. Another thing we can think about is investing your attention into things that will yield you a high return. So what does that look like? Maybe instead of like spending the night tonight watching 2-3 hours of television, maybe you could do something like read, a self-development book that'll help stimulate your mind. That there's going to be a much, much higher return in investment the 2 hours you might spend reading versus, kind of meaningless television. Or maybe if you really want to watch television, watch something like a documentary that on a subject that you would enjoy, like adding knowledge to expand your mind, rather than kind of just watching like a sitcom or something that's not giving you high value. Really thinking about the attention you're putting out into what it's yielding you back. Maybe it's you have to cut a certain type of relationship out of your life because the attention you're putting into it, you're not reciprocating, receiving it back, and it's actually becoming more frustrating, sending you onto that negative side of emotions rather than like really giving you back a good fulfillment. Sometimes it's like we get stuck into this rat race of things are just what's so, and don't think about the fact that we can actually make them however we want to. Sometimes we get like into the mundane, like, this is my relationship, or this is my job, or this is where I live, and you just accept it, but it's really not bringing you joy and fulfilling you. You just have gotten used to the fact that this is the way things are. But you can change them. You have the power to create the life that you love. So we really want you to put your attention on the fact that you are in the driver's seat, and you really have the freedom to do and create whatever you want for yourself in your future. And then, of course, know when to stop your attention. So we know when to put attention into something. Sometimes, again, you have to take your attention back, because what you're receiving back is either taking too much of your attention, and the result that you're yielding from it isn't equivalent to make it the value high enough for you to put your attention into. So being consciously aware of what you're putting your attention on, staying in that positive mindset of what you like to focus your attention on, and then cutting stuff off that doesn't really need your attention anymore. Maybe it's something really simple like picking a new TV show. Maybe it's something that like has a lot of violence in it. It's just adding negative things spewing in your mind, and then you go to bed and then you start dreaming about zombies chasing you, or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
Knowing when to cut
Mhm.
their attention off when it's time to move on. That's really important. And then you feel so fulfilled. Sometimes it's a little scary at first, but that scared feeling inside of you, that's you growing. So don't be
Mhm.
afraid of it.
Mhm.
Embrace it and understand, like, everything happens for a reason. That fear will slowly fade away, and then you'll really be open to more possibilities, because if you don't have the space in your life for these new things, they're not going to be able to come into your life. So sometimes you have to know when to cut that off in order to create the space to get something, or fill that space in with something that's a higher value for you and what you should be lending your attention to.
Powerful stuff. Like there was a few things that came up for me, like as you were speaking, that I gotta touch on before I kind of like dig into my final point. But two things that came up for me. One of them, the last thing you were just talking about, how you have that initial fear when you start to do things differently. It just so happens, or it's been my experience, through dealing with people. Um, a lot of us, a lot of us are living our life with our egos leading the way. You know what I mean? And when we start to make the changes that benefit us truly, not the prideful, not our prideful side, or not the
Mhm.
egotistic side, but when we start to make the changes that benefit us and benefit us on a spiritual level, then our ego becomes defensive. Our ego kicks into fear because it's fighting for its survival at that point. So if you can start to make those little changes, or put your focus on things that build the spirit and not the ego, it's going to be tricky in the beginning, because you got to understand that your ego is fighting for its survival. So when you start to really move towards things that are for your betterment, things that are going to enhance you as a being, your ego is going to start to get louder, and it's going to try to prevent you from making those changes. It's going to try to prevent you from progressing. So we got to be mindful of that when moving forward. And then also, I think it's very important, especially you know, in the time and space that we're in right now. I think it's very important to remind people to live in the world, but don't let the world live in you. The title of tonight's show was Finding the Eye in the Storm. And the reason why we chose that is because for most people, 2020 has been a storm. And it's really thrown a lot of people for a loop. People dealt with a lot of different things, and the world as a whole was in storm mode. There was just a storm raging for almost the entire year. So we felt it was important to talk to you guys about finding the eye of the storm, like the eye of the actual storm. Like when there's a big storm and it comes in the eye, there's actually no storm. It could be crazy wind, lightning, thunder, trees blowing down, but when you get to the eye of that storm, the sun is shining. There's no rain, there's no nothing, right? So the metaphor in that is that we have to find the eye in the storms that we face. We have to find how we find ourselves, and when we find ourselves and become centered, then we become the eye of the storm, right? No matter what's happening around us, everything, trees crashing, wind blowing, cars flipping, whatever's happening. If you're centered and you got that peace in yourself, and you have that stillness, doesn't matter what's happening around you, right? But when you start to digest all or what's the word? You start to put your focus on the storm. You start to put the focus on everything outside of yourself, then you become part of the storm, right? And we don't want that. We want to become centered. We want to become the eye of the storm and not allow this world to creep and live inside of us, right? We got to live in the world, but don't let the world live in us, right? The boat doesn't sink because it's in the water. The boat sinks because the water is in the boat, right? We all heard that before. So to drive this home, right? We have to start to build on our focus, where we're lending it, and then we also have to have the discipline to increase our attention span, right? Because when we think about focusing, if you even just imagine focusing on something, that means you're locking in on something. You're totally locked in, you're focused, and nothing will distract you from what it is that you're focused on. The problem is that it's very hard for us to focus nowadays because of all the storm that is around us and because of the way that society is structured. Everything everything is happening so quick that you don't even have an opportunity to focus on something, right? If you go on Instagram, say you open up Instagram,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? You go on Instagram and you're like, as soon as you open it, you're like, oh, I like that picture, right? Before you can even look at the picture, it's gone. It's like, oh, I like that. Whoop, it's gone. Oh, damn, where the hell did it go? You know what I mean? Or if you go on Facebook, you might even somebody who might have came across this video, they might have stopped on it and was like, oh, oh, I like what they're saying. Oh, this is a good. Well, you know what? Swoop. Because
Exactly.
we don't have that attention span.
Right.
Um, Studies show that at not so far into the past, the human attention span was like 7 seconds, like on average. I think we're down to under 2 seconds right now.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know what I mean? So it's like it's crazy because everything is instant. Everything is instant gratification to the point that if we can't have it now, most people don't even want it. You know what I mean? So the concept of focus and the concept of holding your attention on a fixated thing, being yourself, right? Keeping your focus on yourself is almost virtually non-existent at this point unless you do the work to get there. Most of us can't even stand being alone with ourselves for like 5 seconds. You riding in the car, your radio's off, right? And then you're like driving and you're like, something's wrong. So quiet in here. Let me turn this radio up. Because you don't even want to be with yourself to actually start to dive into, what might be going on in your mind or different things that may come up inside of you. Like you don't even want to pay attention to yourself. You rather
Hmm.
pay attention to the radio. You rather pay attention to the billboard. You might pay attention to the next car that's passing you. All of these different things that are screaming for your attention um, are keeping you from putting attention on yourself, being centered in yourself, and then applying your focus to the things that are beneficial to you. Because wherever you focus in life, wherever you lie your focus, that area of your life will expand, right? So people who focus on negative things, more negative things happen to them. People that focus on positive things, more positive things happen to them. Now, does that mean that negative things don't happen to positive people? No, it doesn't mean that. But what it means is that when negative things happen to positive people, they choose to focus on the positive. Rather than focus on the problem, they're focused on the solution. Therefore, their perspective is attracting more positive things to them, even if even if they're surrounded by negativity, even if they're in a storm of negativity, for the most part, they don't even know it because their focus and their perspective is turned to the positive. So it's not that these things don't exist around them. It's just that it's not in their awareness because they're not focused on that. So the same can prove true for anybody who's watching this stream right now. If you find yourself facing storm after storm after storm after storm, you have to stop and ask yourself, where is your focus at? Is your focus inward to figure out how can I find my peace? How can I find my center? Or are you focused on the storm? Are you focused on the things flying around? Are you focused on the lightning crash? Are you focused on, the heavy rain? If you're focused on those things, then that's gonna be your perspective on life. But if you can turn that focus inward and find that inner strength, find that inner voice, find what is important to you and focus on that, what you'll find is that the pendulum will swing. And it's not that the storm goes away, right? It's just that you're not even, let me give you another analogy, right? Because you're not even focused on a storm. But no matter how bad a storm is, if you elevate high enough, right? Just imagine a storm going crazy, boom, boom, boom. You start elevating and you're going up. Once you pass and you elevate through the clouds, you're above the storm. The sun's shining for you, even though the storm is happening down here. So when we elevate, right? When we center and elevate, we're not only above the storm, we're not even aware of the storm. But the world has conditioned us to be storm chasers. Like if you guys ever seen that movie Twister and then the tornadoes come and they hop in a car and they're chasing it and they're filming it and all that type of stuff. You know what I mean? The world has conditioned us to be storm chasers. We don't have to chase a storm. You don't have to be stressed out. You don't need drama. You don't need conflict. You don't need all of those things that they would want you to believe are normalcy when it comes to living life. Drama and stress and anxiety and all those things, that's not a normal events that should be taking place in your life. We're all creatures, right? We're human. We got other abilities other than like animals and stuff, like we could talk and stuff like that. But you know what I mean? You don't see a deer in the woods all stressed out, you know what I mean? Or all like whatever. They're chilling. It's just natural. You know what I mean? The natural way is to just be on the frequency of peace and love. Anything outside of peace and love is not natural. It's not natural. You know what I mean? So if you just people, it's harder to stress. It's harder to hate. It's harder to be in chaos than it is to just be naturally in love and naturally be peaceful. That's natural. It takes more out of you to do the opposite. So we got to find our eye in the storm. We got to find our center, and we got to get focused on the things that matter most to us, and then turn our attention inward. And then when it's time to turn our attention outward, be mindful of where we're turning that attention to and what it's producing inside of our life. Because not everyone and not everything deserves your attention. And you have to start to qualify the things that you lend your attention to. Don't just give it away. You know what I mean? Don't just give your attention away to things. You got to start qualifying things to deserve your attention because it's important and you're worth it.
Yes. Quantity over quality. I mean, quality over quantity.
I got you.
For sure.
Sorry, I went on a little rant right there. I just started to
It's
feel it.
all
I had
good.
to go in.
So we're going to wrap it up for tonight. We do want to announce, if you haven't seen it yet,
Mm.
our 3-day course is coming next Monday, July. I wish it
I
was
was like,
July.
what? Summertime,
January
I'm
11th.
out.
I would not be here. I'd be
For real.
outdoors somewhere. January 11th, 12th, and 13th. So this event is going to happen at 8 p.m. It's going to last about 1 hour. So similar concept and idea of what we're doing now. We also will have an opportunity for a question and answer piece. So that's kind of more exclusive than what we offer here. And then we'll really have an opportunity to get to know each other through that stream if you so choose to interact, as we speak. And then, of course, you feel free to invite anybody that you'd like. The event is on the Kings and Queens Academy Facebook page. So you can sign up and register yourself there. The space is limited, so just be sure to do that as soon as possible if you can commit to the 3 days. Everything will go live, and then it will be recorded as well in a private group. So in order to gain access to that private group, you will need to register ahead of time and do all that kind of fun stuff. So the link is right in the event for the Kings and Queens Academy. You can go right to our page. The event's right at the top there. If you have any questions or if you want to sign up and you're having a little bit of trouble, feel free to reach out to either one of us and we can facilitate that for you and walk you through it. Anything left, my friend?
No, I was just saying I'm going to go ahead and post the link for the event in the comments of this video. So it'll be easier for you guys to find. And again, just register for it. It's going to be extremely powerful. No holding back. We're going all the way in. And I'm gonna, you know me, I'll jump out the window with it. I'm gonna guarantee that when you guys leave this 3 days, you're going to be changed up, you're going to be charged up, and you're going to be ready to get out here and just get to work and have life work for you. And you're going to have a powerful, powerful 2021 in every year going forward. Kings and Queens Academy, we're out here to lift people up out of their circumstance and back into, the kingdom, back into being a king, back into being a queen, and building our kingdom here in this time and space.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you hopefully on Monday. Have a great